Hello and welcome to our webinar, Fall Series Nonfiction. I'm Julia Smith, Senior Editor, Books for Youth at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a button for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting caption settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Andy Dean, Content Marketing Manager at Nomad Press, Maureen McMullen, Marketing Specialist for Bearport Publishing, Laura Villano, Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Jump, and Katie Kawa, Editorial Director for the Rosen Publishing Group. First, we'll hear from Andy Dean. Andy is the Content Marketing Manager at Nomad Press, with an independent educational publisher in Norwich, Vermont. Andy has written 17 nonfiction books, plus a picture book on mental health called Mama's Days. She visits schools and libraries around the country to talk about science, writing, poetry, mental wellness, and anything else kids want to know. Andy also works as a bookseller at her local indie in Vermont, the Norwich Bookstore, and lives in a rural New Hampshire with her husband, 3 sons, and too many pets. Take it away, Andy.
Hey, how are you all? Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Booklist, for having me today. I'm super excited to talk to you about our upcoming books and also about Nomad Press in general. This is our first time doing a webinar with Booklist, or really with anyone else. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about our company and who we are and what we do, what we want to do, our hopes and dreams, everything like that. So if we could have slide number 2, Taylor, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, we have spent, more than 20 years developing children's nonfiction books used in classrooms, libraries, and homeschools around the world. What are our books about? Mostly they are about what we, the editorial team, are curious about. We are all lifelong learners and we are excited to dive into topics. And we are also, our books are about what we hear kids being curious about. We spend a lot of time in schools. We spend a lot of time driving kids around and, listening, trying to overhear topics of conversation as we get kids to sports, all sorts of sports practices, too many sports practices. But we are tuned in that way to what kids are wondering about, what they want to know, and what support teachers and librarians need as well. Our books are about genetics, robotics, immigration, physics, race relations, the Earth's biomes, space travel, how the universe got its start, little things. The climate crisis, how engine works. I did not understand how engines work until we actually did a book about engines. So thank you. We have books about the American Civil War, World War I, the Vietnam War, the chemistry of food, how physics affects skateboarding, super popular book. The science of fashion and garbage. We have books about garbage, among many, many, many other topics. Our books are split between science and social studies, maybe about 60-40, maybe 70-30 in favor of science. We're kind of a bunch of science nerdies. So here at Nomad Press, we are a bunch of book nerds who love kids and want them to know stuff. That's sort of our foundation, our underlying foundation. Okay, next panel, please. Our series, we have several series of books covering from ages 5 up to 15. Picture books, we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but we have the Explore Your World series for ages 7 to 10, Build It Yourself for ages 9 to 12, and Inquire Investigate for ages 12 to 15. We have some supplementary series too. We have a set of books on the Renaissance, another set on the Civil Rights Movement. We have a couple different sets about women working in science. Basically, someone on the staff kind of became super interested in the Renaissance and went down a rabbit hole. And then a year and a half later, we had 4 books about it because we could not stop talking about it. And then wonderfully, they ended up selling really well. And that is the magic of publishing children's books. At the moment, we're only doing a few books a year, but our backlist is incredibly strong. And what we do, we always are checking and updating text. You know, when you publish science books, you need to keep up with the science. It's very important to us to make sure that we are putting out books that are scientifically accurate, that we are correcting the things that we know better now, that we are always checking and checking to make sure we're not putting out bad information in the world. One more thing before we talk about picture books, almost all of our books include hands-on activities. This is super important for us, ranging from like very easy projects like basic model building or observations to more complex activities that might take place over the course of several days and might include more extensive note-taking, things like growing bean seeds or tracking the position of celestial objects. The reason we include activities, we want every learner to feel included in our books. Some kids, they learn better when they can manipulate materials, take things apart, put them back together. And when they have access to 3-dimensional models, especially ones they build themselves, that can really help them to visualize what can be really sophisticated concepts that they're trying to learn. My middle son is one of those learners. You know, he can read a book and he cannot tell you what it's about. Try as he might, he will not understand actually what it's about, but you put him in a room with a recycling bin and a list of steps and he can build anything and explain how. We want to make sure we are reaching all of the learners with our books. And that's also why we include QR codes throughout most of our books. And these, provide links to primary source materials and to videos that illustrate and demonstrate what we're talking about in our books. Again, some kids, they really need that supplemental layer to be able to grasp a concept. Even me, I'm very much a word person, but wow, when I first saw that video of the bowling ball falling at the same rate of speed as a feather in zero gravity, that was mind-blowing. That was such an eye-opening moment for me. Even though I got it, seeing it was just a whole nother level, and we want kids to get to that level, all kids. Okay, next slide, please. Picture books. Nonfiction picture books have been hugely popular for us since we started publishing them in 2018. So gosh, 5 years ago? And picture books, they're so popular. Kids love them, and not just little kids. We say they're for ages 5 to 8, but I do a lot of school visits, and most of those school visits happen in middle schools. Middle school teachers and librarians love using picture books because they really distill tough concepts into a very accessible platform. Everyone is able to understand picture books because pictures, pictures are great. And the language too, the language is accessible. Glossaries make it even more accessible. Whenever I visit schools, I feel like the teachers, there's this mantra among teachers, middle school teachers, picture books are for everyone. They all tell me this, picture books are for everyone, and I completely agree. And, elementary schools love them too. They're great. They're great for all ages. Okay, so that slide is all of our picture books. The next slide, this is our fall 2023 picture books. These are all about simple machines. The 6 simple machines: levers, inclined planes, screws, pulleys, wedges, wheels, and axles. Yes, wheels and axles, that is one simple machine, even though it's 2 components, but one doesn't get too far without the other. Simple machines were first described by Archimedes around the 3rd century BCE when he came up with the concept of mechanical advantage. That's what simple machines do for us. They make different kinds of work easier for humans through mechanical advantage. Of course, people have been using simple machines long before Archimedes started talking about them. Early humans used ramps, levers, wedges made out of bone, dirt, stone, any resource they had. Screws and pulleys are a little bit more complex, but they still came along fairly early. Wheels, the first wheels were actually potter's wheels used by ancient Sumerians as far back as 3250 BCE. Simple machines are super engaging for kids. Again, these books include activities. Simple machines really lend themselves to hands-on learning. So let's take a closer look at these 6 books. If I can have the next slide. Inclined Planes, Ramp It Up. We had fun with these titles. This book comes out October 15th, with all of these, both hardcover and paperback, published simultaneously. Can we have the next slide, please, for Inclined Planes? All of these books use kid-friendly examples, such as building a snowman, which honestly today, as most of us are sweltering in various spots across the country, it might not feel like a real-world example, but hopefully we'll get back to building snowmen in a few more months, some of us. Okay, next slide, please. In this book, characters use a ramp to help them build a snowman before the book launches into different kinds of ramps and where you might see them. At schools, libraries, a skate park. We talk about different kinds of inclined planes you might see. Movable ones on dump trucks as they dump a load. Stairs are considered an inclined plane, which I didn't realize until I started researching this. We define mechanical advantage, talk about the force of friction that affects heavy loads on ramps. And we have a quick, fun demonstration where kids can slap their hands together, rub really hard, and they can feel the effect of friction. You're all welcome to do this as well. Do this at home. And that makes for some fun observations. We cover some quick history of inclined planes. Ancient Roman aqueducts were actually ginormous ramps, so water could travel using just gravity. Amazing. We also have an activity and a glossary. We add photos to the back matter. If I can get the next slide, please, that would be great. Wonderful. There's our activity. There's some of the photos. We like to add photos because we have fantastic dynamic illustrations, but we also want kids to see the real thing. Just another connection in their their reading life to the real world. Okay, next slide, we'll go to Levers. Levers publishes in November, and we start with sort of an obvious example. Oh, let me read the title because it's so cute. Levers lessen the load. Yay. All right, next slide. A seesaw. Okay. Of course, well, not of course, most kids have tried out different kinds of seesaws. It's a great example of a lever. We talk about the different parts of a lever, the beam and the fulcrum, and then we dive into the 3 different kinds of levers. There's first class, which is a seesaw, second class is a wheelbarrow, and third class is a fishing pole. Those are some examples. There's lots of different examples in each different class, but those are some examples we figure kids will respond to. Can I have the next slide? There they are in the seesaw. So we also then find levers in our own bodies too. I don't have a spread of that because that was included later on before or after this was developed. But our bodies have lots of levers in them, and that again lends itself to some just easy experiments, lifting up a bucket and deciding what class lever your arm is. Histories of levers, early tools used for agriculture, the balance scale, invented about 7,000 years ago in the ancient Middle East. The shaduf, this is such a cool irrigation tool used in ancient Egypt to water the crops. Great historical connections there too, some social studies there too. And then the next slide, we make our own lever. Super easy to do, super effective, super fun for kids, and it lends itself to weighing different things. How much force does it take to lift a can of soup, a zucchini, whatever you have around the house? Okay, and the next book, next slide, Wheels and Axles. This one comes out in November. Again, hardcover or softcover simultaneously. Next slide. If you were designing a wheelbarrow, what would you put on the bottom to make it move easily? Probably not skis or stilts or springs. Next slide. You might reach for a wheel and axle. Again, in this book, we talk about friction because that's a big part of why we have wheels, to reduce friction. We have a great illustration. I don't think it's in, no, it's not in this. A great illustration of a bicycle wheel and the gears and the chain, and it sort of shows how the motion works to make both wheels go at the same time. We also talk about water wheels, the wheel on your pizza cutter, and Ferris wheel. And next slide, then we make a water wheel, which is super fun. Next slide is screws. Screws keep things secure. In screws, we build a tree house. You can go to the next slide. What kid doesn't want their own tree house? I would like my own tree house, even though I'm an adult. We talk about screws as fasteners, and then talk about the kind of screws you find underneath the cap on your water bottle, on the end of a light bulb, and screw conveyors that move huge amounts of material, such as concrete or dirt, which brings us to an Archimedes screw. You can go to the next slide, and the next slide. And that's what we build for an activity, an Archimedes screw that really does actually work. Next slide is the wedge. Wedges make a point. That's publishing in October. Next slide. We start with a wedge as a doorstop because that's super familiar. We can go to the next slide. We can talk about wedges that are both devices that keep things together and split things apart. Like an axe is used to split things apart, as is a fork and teeth. And then we talk a bit about the history of wooden wedges that were shimmied into cracks in stone, and then water was poured over them, so they expanded and the stone split. And that's part of how ancient Egyptians built those enormous pyramids. Next slide. Oh, and the next slide. We're going a little faster, running out of time. Pulleys. Pulleys pull their weight. Next slide. This one is out in October, and it might be my favorite because look at that adorable elephant sitting on a book. He is just one of my favorite characters ever. Next slide. We talk about how pulleys work, what happens when you add more pulleys, and we are out of time. Thank you so much. We can go all the way to the end. We make a pulley, and there we go. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Contact me with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. We'll now hear from Maureen McMullen. Maureen is a marketing specialist for Bearport Publishing, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. She enjoys working with curricular nonfiction for kids because it allows her to continually learn new things and build connections with teachers and librarians. In her free time, Maureen loves working on crochet projects, riding her bike, and spoiling her cats. Thanks for being here today, Maureen.
Thank you. Hi, welcome to Bearport Publishing's Fall 2023 list. I appreciate you taking the time to listen today. So I'm just going to jump right in and get started. Next slide, please. So new to Bearport is our Supersonic Phonics decodable leveled readers. Next slide, please. Supersonic Phonics is a collection of 166 fiction stories over 13 levels for grades pre-K through 4. And the books in Supersonic Phonics feature fun, quirky stories that engage young readers. And the collection starts with the basics of CVC words, so consonant, vowel, consonant, and gradually progresses to more complex combinations. And this approach is based on the science of reading, and it supports most phonics programs. Next slide, please. All books are leveled with Lexile and GRL, and they've been submitted to Accelerated Reader, so this collection can be used for a variety of reading programs. And as students advance through the color band levels, the page numbers, level of repetition, and sentence structure complexity increase gradually. This progression encourages reading development and confidence without taking away from readers enjoying the story. Next slide, please. In addition to the book, Supersonic Phonics offers teacher and parent resources for each title, and here you can get a glimpse at the colorful illustrations and the different text loads. Next slide, please. Fusion books are next, and Fusion is a K-3 imprint that includes a mixture of illustrations and photographs. So think of it like a bridge from reading picture books to traditional nonfiction. Next slide, please. Our Greatest Adventures is a low-level biography set, and each spread includes a description of a trailblazer explorer in space, on land, in the air, and sea. And readers will learn about the Wright brothers, Bessie Coleman, Marco Polo, Nellie Bly, Sacagawea, and my favorite, Annie Londonderry. And she was an American woman who rode her bike around the world. So can you imagine as a young reader how amazing it would be to think about just getting on your bike and pedaling around the world? And each spread also includes a Be Inspired section where we include inspirational quotes like, never be afraid to be the first person to try something new, and spend time learning new things. And all of these books end with a short activity. So for example, in the Land book, the activity is taking a map and planning out your next adventure. So what will you bring? What's your route? Where are you going to go to? Next slide, please. Internet Issues is all about what the internet is, how to access it, and what you can do on it, and how to be safe. So readers will learn about why it's important to think about what you're sharing online. So it warns them about sharing personal information like your real name, your age, your location when you're gaming. And the information book that you see here is probably one of my favorites. It helps readers learn to decipher between facts and opinions. So they're making sure they're checking their sources, using 2 or 3 different types of sources to determine if something is fact or fiction. Next slide, please. We are on our 3rd set of our popular series, LifeWorks. We have a lot of fun with this series because, as you can see here, it has our fun little monsters in it. So this series now has 12 books in total, and it's all about early life skills and learning how to navigate new experiences. And we feel like having the monsters introduce these concepts is kind of a friendly way to engage readers to overcome some of the nerves that can trigger or be triggered by these new experiences. And then activities throughout the books help readers practice these new skills. Next slide, please. Moving on to Bear Claw imprint. So this is a high interest graphic narrative nonfiction imprint. Next slide, please. Amazing Moments in Sports is a very high interest series about pivotal points in sports history. The content covers some really impressive moments in sports. And then as you'll see on the next slide, the illustrations are pretty amazing. And as you can see here by the spreads, the illustrations are very engaging. So the back matter includes additional information on these events and then bonus information about other great moments in sports. Next slide, please. Create is our hands-on learning imprint. Next slide, please. And our Create series this season is Full Steam Ahead. And this series takes a look at the 5 sections of STEAM. And that includes, introduces science experiments, art projects, magic tricks, and recipes that all use these concepts. So as you go through the books, there's like step-by-step instructions. And then at the very end, we pull it all together to show a real-world application. We also try very hard to make sure we suggest using recycled materials. Next slide, please. Bearport Books are a high interest, visually appealing series for grades 3 through 8. Next slide, please. Plantastic is a new series all about different kinds of amazing plants like prickly plants, scattering plants, and more. So along with life cycles, explanations, and incredible images, each book is filled with super fun facts. So here are a few. In Ouch, readers will find out about the oldest living rosebush, which is over 1,000 years old. In Scatter, and this is one of my favorites, we cover the squirting cucumber plant, which squirts seeds up to 60 miles an hour. There's also a bristlecone pine that is 5,000 years old, but the location is kept secret because they don't want it getting destroyed. So pretty incredible. Next slide, please. Space Files is a narrative nonfiction type of series that's designed and written in kind of a fun top secret files format. And it reads like readers are going on a mission to space to explore and discover black holes, stars, planets, asteroids, and comets. So the titles start out with, welcome to the mission, here's what you're going to be doing. And then as readers go through the content, they'll learn about space from these amazing images and fun infographics. And this series is a very high interest way of getting readers excited about space. Next slide, please. Another one of my favorite series this season is Totally Not True, and it's kind of reminiscent of the tabloids that you see at the checkout counter at grocery stores. In this series, we explode myths with science. So as you can see by the spreads, oh, sorry, next slide, please. Or go back, I am so sorry. As you can see by the spreads, we lay the myth out almost like a forensic science case and use the scientific method to prove them wrong. So some of the myths we explode are claims of a fake moon landing, the Loch Ness Monster, and Bigfoot. Next slide, please. Extreme Facts, Natural Disasters is our next series, and we love our extreme facts at Bearport. They're all written with a sense of humor where it's appropriate, and in this one, we dive into the largest earthquakes, the biggest blizzards, and more, and we dig up crazy facts that readers love to share. For example, the tallest tsunami ever recorded was in Alaska's Latuga Bay in 1958. It was 1,720 feet, and that's 3 times taller than the Seattle Space Needle. Next slide, please. Country Explorers Set 3 will complete this series, and so now we have 30 titles, and these books include information on each country's culture, geography, landforms, language, and currency. And it also includes images that show where it's located on the map of the world, its flag, and much more. Next slide, please. Library of Awesome Animals is one of our in-house staff favorites because we have so much fun picking out the animals and learning all these crazy facts about them. So for example, did you know the axolotl is only this lovely white and pink color when it's in captivity? In its natural habitat, it's more of a kind of like darker brown color. And then the pufferfish is the most poisonous animal in the sea, and only sharks can survive eating them. But probably one of our favorites this season is the sun bear, because we are Bearport. We love the sunspot under its necks and under its chin, and it has a super long tongue. But the best part is that the cubs hum to communicate with their moms, which I think is really cute and awesome. Next slide, please. Silvertip Books is our curricular high-low imprint. These are written at a 2nd to 3rd grade reading level, and the interest level is meant for grades 5 through 7. And they all have dyslexic-friendly font and design where possible. And again, they cover core curricular topics. Next slide, please. Biology Basics covers biology high points, and we feature lots of infographics and eye-catching images. So in photosynthesis, we include an amazing diagram of this process. And then in animal classification, there's a great animal characteristics chart. So the back matter in all Silvertip books includes visual explanations of the content, as well as our Silvertips for Success section, which includes test-taking tips on the specific topic, as well as in general. Next slide, please. Next, we have US history. So this series takes US history curriculum and breaks it down into easy to understand level text. We include key battle maps, images that bring history to life, and we also use a content consultant who makes sure our content is in line with upper elementary into middle school curriculum. Next slide, please. And now we'll introduce our new imprint, Roar. So Roar books are traditional high-low titles available in 3 levels that are engaging nonfiction stories. Next slide, please. Our first series is Can You Believe It? So this series is written at the 1st grade level, and it's meant for 3rd graders and higher. And all 4 books cover unbelievable inventions, plants, and facts from space. So for instance, there are over 12,000 types of grass and a type of bamboo that can grow over 35 inches in a day. Next slide, please. Nasty Ways to Go is our series written at a 1st grade level. And this series informs readers all about the nasty and unusual ways people have died through history. So for instance, Bobby Leach is somebody who survived a trip over the Niagara Falls only to slip on an orange peel and die. Next slide, please. Totally Silly Science is written at a 2nd grade reading level, and it's meant for 4th graders and up. It gives readers a taste of some sillier aspects of science. So did you know that airplanes use potato passengers to test the effects of Wi-Fi on airplanes? Or that the 4-inch mantis shrimp has the world record for the fastest punch? Next slide, please. And it wouldn't be high-low if we didn't have zombies, mummies, vampires, and aliens. And Supernatural Survivor covers how to survive an attack by one of these creatures. So we'll cover how to avoid being attacked, how to identify these creatures, how to protect yourself, and survival skills. So super engaging. Next slide, please. A Planet in Peril is written at a 3rd grade level, meant for 5th grade and above. And the series is written like a narrative nonfiction format in kind of a diary view of our present planet from the future. So it's telling environmental stories about how we've poisoned the planet, and the future generation living on another safe planet are learning lessons on how not to treat theirs. So it's a very engaging way to learn about the environment. Next slide, please. And last but not least, we have Hideous History. So this is written at a 3rd grade level. And in this series, reluctant readers will learn about bloody battlefields, crazy pirate antics, and the quickest draw in the Wild West. And all of this is wrapped up in engaging design, and it's sure to get readers interested in history. Next slide, please. So I just want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions about anything you saw or heard today, please email me at maureen@bearportpublishing.com. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Now we'll hear from Laura Villano. Laura is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where she has the privilege of leading sales and marketing efforts for Jump. She loves being a part of a team that creates amazing books for young readers. When she isn't sharing her love of low-level books with librarians, she is spending her time going on adventures with her husband and dog, scheming her next house project, and practicing meditation. Thanks for being here today, Laura.
Thanks so much for having me at Booklist, and it's been so enjoyable to listen to everybody's presentations so far. I forget that I'm actually here to present as well. So I got to get vamped up here because I am so engaged with all this amazing content. I'm, like Julia said, I'm Laura Villano. All the titles I'm presenting today from Jump are available August 1st, so just around the corner. If you aren't familiar, Jump is an educational primarily nonfiction publisher focused on grades pre-K to 3rd grade. And so we're very focused in on those early reading, that early reading experience. If you could go to the next slide, please, Taylor. And coincidentally, our sister company is with Bearport. So Maureen and I work closely together, and Jump and Bearport collaborated to help fill this need for decodable books. And so Bearport and Maureen presented amazingly on supersonic phonics. So I'm going to just briefly cover Decodables by Jump, which is really a pairing for Supersonic Phonics. Supersonic Phonics is an amazing collection of fiction titles, and Decodables by Jump offers nonfiction. So again, still a comprehensive and sequenced approach to phonetically decodable reading. You can go to the next slide, please. So we have 46 titles across 12 levels. We have 72 more titles coming out in January, which we call spring here in the nonfiction publishing world. But in January of 2024, these books feature real life photos to engage curious readers, and we have teaching tips, comprehensive questions, and phonics exercises in each. Much like Maureen's chart, which she showed you for Supersonic Phonics, again, we follow that same format where as readers move through these color bands, the content that they're engaging with is building on each other and becoming more comprehensive. And then as they read and reach fluency reading. Next slide, please, Taylor. I'm going to skip through all these. So if you could go to the next slide and the next slide and then the next slide. Because I want to save on time, and Maureen did such a good job, but also just to reiterate, we do have downloadable resources available for each and every one of these books as well. Our website, jumplibrary.com, is a great place to take a look further at all these books at these levels. We've got a great trailer video that gives you more information about these as well, but just always to make sure Wi-Fi is good. I didn't put the video on our presentation today, but there's a great amount of information on there to help support your needs for phonics and decodable books in your library. Next slide, please. I'm going to move on and start talking about the rest of our list for this fall, which we begin with our Grasshopper imprint. And this is our educational fiction imprint that comes at 3 different levels. The first series that we're talking about here is Celebrating All Friends, which is a great social emotional learning series where we have these fun fictional stories celebrating friendship. Each book presents a challenge faced by a child with a disability or difficult experiences and showcases how their friends help support them overcome, cope with the situation that they're in. I also think, if you could go to the next slide, what's really great about this series, and not just our representation throughout all of our illustrations, but that these relationships with these kids in the stories are reciprocated. They're back and forth. It's not just a one-way thing, and we're not just talking about one-way relationships here. So in Pool Pals, Maya uses leg braces and crutches on land, but swims freely in the community pool. She helps her friend Jax, who is afraid to swim, feel more comfortable in the water and learn to put his head under. And so we have these mutually beneficial, amazing friendships that we're watching develop through this Celebrating All Friends. Next slide, please. An amazing sportsmanship series for us, bumping up to our level 3. So these are written at a 2nd grade reading level, is our super sports stories, where we're showcasing kids playing our favorite sports. Educational fiction means that we're also highlighting the equipment used, the positions, the actions on the field, court, or mat. Characters in these stories are encountering conflicts with teammates, or with self-confidence, or with trying a new position, or navigating through a season with injuries. And the teammates and coaches serve as secondary characters, providing encouragement and reassurance. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. Last within Grasshopper is our fairy tale phonics. This is a continuing series for us. So we bumped it up to that that level 3 within Grasshopper. The initial 4 books that came out this last spring were at our level 2. So this gives us an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into phonics instruction. As you can see here, 2-syllable words, vowel teams, prefixes and suffixes, while also building on characters within these stories. These are just beautiful illustrations. They're so fun. I can't get enough of Midnight the Unicorn. In fact, I just printed, had a sticker printed of Midnight because we just love Midnight so much. But really clever and beautiful. Trixie the fairy flies in search of flowers that have vowel teams in their names. And along the way, she befriends a disgruntled house elf, and they end up working together as a team. Next slide, please. I just can't get enough of their beautiful illustrations within that series. Perfect. Okay, so next we're moving on to Tadpole Books. Tadpole is our imprint that is the lowest we go in nonfiction. These are 16-page books, high frequency words, repetitive text patterns, consistent text placement, great photo to text match, and labeled photographs through all of our Tadpole books. My First Animal Books features, we just did some big hitters here, some of our favorites that we can't keep in stock: narwhals, llamas, iguanas, hedgehogs. And these readers, we teach them within these books where these animals live, what they do, their defining features, how they use them, what they eat, what their young look like. They're packed full of great photos. If you can go to the next slide, please. Because of our simple text, the photos in our Tadpole books are just really outstanding and engaging our early readers. Next slide, please. We have I Spy Shapes. This is a great search and find. A lot of feedback that we've received so far about I Spy Shapes is that it's so great to have a search and find series that's geared towards these lower level books or lower level readers. So we're not only introducing shape recognition, but also reinforcing concepts like colors and accounting as they move through this series. Next slide, please. Moving on to Bullfrog, which is that first independent reading experience within our Jump imprint. Where we're 24-page books. Again, photo to text match is spot on, great labeled photographs, a diagram or an activity in the back, and a picture glossary in the back of these as well. We have Earth Basics. You can go to the next slide, please, because I think I have some pretty spreads. What I think is so neat as we are introducing these materials is that we provide illustration overlays throughout these books. So these are introductory STEM topics written at a pretty low level, and the illustrations really help elevate and aid in comprehension. As we introduce soil and rocks and water and minerals. You can see an example here for that in the back matter for minerals at home, where we label everyday objects that are made and derived from materials. In rocks, we provide a rock cycle diagram, same in the water book as well, a water cycle diagram. Next slide, please. Working horses, a huge fan favorite here in-house. Horses are amazing. We learn all about how they train, where they work, and what makes them great at each of their jobs. Next slide, please. Therapy horses quickly became an in-house favorite. You can just really see the beautiful bond that the kids and the horses develop within this series. And it's such a heartwarming series that has seriously elevated its way to the top of our list here. Over 10 years of publishing, Therapy Horses now sits at the top for our team here. Next slide, please. We can't get enough of whales either. We love doing animal books within our Bullfrog imprint. In fact, in everything we do with Jump to engage readers in the books that they want to read. So Amazing Marine Mammals, where we cover what oceans that they live in, their defining features, predatory and eating practices, cool behaviors like breaching or bubble nets. We don't talk about the latest in the news with killer whales, and there's some interesting behavior that we've got going on there that didn't make the book. We also have life cycle diagrams in here. Can you go to the next page, please? And a labeled body diagram, which we love to do. And we also compare each one of these whales to that in the size of a school bus. Next slide, please. Baby Animals in the Wild. This is a continuing series for us. If you can go to the next slide, so I can just show you really cute images of baby animals. And that's really all I'm going to say about it. What more do you need? but to cut on time. They're amazing, beautiful baby animals. Next up, we have science questions. 4 new titles here. So similar to Earth Basics, if you can go to the next slide so we can see as we learn about these concepts, again, providing those illustration overlays at these early reading levels where we're introducing more complex concepts. We provide a diagram in the back so they can see the full phenomenon, but also great illustrations over these images to help really bring these concepts to life and aid in comprehension with these really cool science questions. Great for curious readers who want to know more about the natural world. Next slide, please. Late breaking, we have a new LeBron James title. That's all I'm going to say. He's a part of our In the Spotlight series. We updated his timeline and the images and the records that he broke this year. He's one of our best-selling books within our biography series. So I just wanted to call out LeBron because I would be remiss if I didn't. Next slide, please. Moving into POGO, which is our STEM and social studies imprint written at a 2nd and 3rd grade reading level. These books are packed with infographics, really fun sidebars, and activities or experiments in the back of these books. Within social studies, we have history of pets. These are fact-filled, super fun, focusing on our best friends. They're just full of so much fun information, how we interact with these pets today, why they became such good pets. Are they used as therapy or working animals? The back matter highlights the top 6 breeds of each pet in the United States. If you could go to the next slide, providing a brief description of each breed. This spread was actually updated because the Labrador Retriever is no longer the #1 dog breed in the United States. The French Bulldog is, so we updated that before this went to press. Next slide, please. Holiday History is another continuing series for us. We have 6 new titles that you can see here. This is a unique way of covering holidays within educational nonfiction, where we are really talking about the history behind these holidays, where they originated from, the peoples, traditions, and symbols, where and how it's celebrated around the world. So a really great global perspective here, which I very much appreciate. If you could go to the next slide, please. You can see in the back matter, we include a place of origin and quick facts about the holiday, great infographics. And a key feature here that I think is very important is that each one of these books is written with an authentic voice, meaning that the author of each of these books experiences and celebrates these holidays culturally themselves. And that was a really important piece for us as we developed holiday history. Next slide, please. Moving on to POGO STEM. This is where we focus on STEM, introducing STEM topics within our POGO imprint, and we have all about insects. These are beautiful, comprehensive introductions to our favorite, most well-known insects. There's more to come here as well. Again, our team does such an amazing job with our photos that we put in each and every one of our books, and I think All About Insects really highlights that. If you want to go to the next slide, please. We cover appearance, diet, behaviors, life cycles, habitats, you name it. There's a body part diagram, life cycle diagram, and a habitat range in all of these as well. Next slide, please. We have How Does It Work? Farm Tech. This is a really exciting series where we introduce these complex concepts written in an accessible language that we want to make sure appeals to young readers who enjoy learning about big machines. There's infographics that highlight the machinery, labeling the parts, showing how they work and help make farming more efficient. We also talk about recent and potential breakthroughs in each area, discussing why advances in technology are needed to help fuel our growing world population. And a content consultant who is a professor of advanced machinery systems at the University of Nebraska reviewed these titles for us. Next slide, please. Oh, a spread, beautiful. Next slide. Forgot about that one. We have World of Ocean Animals. This is a continuing series for us. So we have 8 new titles that you can see here, 26 total. Some really great books within our World of Ocean Animals. These are super comprehensive. If you go to the next slide so we can just look at the amazing photos throughout. We feature body diagram infographics. We talk about their range in the ocean. Their lifestyle, habitat, all those things are talked about. Our photos for ocean books end up being my top favorite. So they're just really beautiful. And before I run out of time, I'm going to talk about one more series. So next slide, please. Our Blue Owl imprint is written at a 2nd, 3rd grade reading level, and our Blue Owl books focus on health, wellness, and social and emotional learning, covering topics that plant the seeds for academic success and a meaningful and healthy life. And we're really excited to introduce SEL careers this fall. We dive into the necessary education and training for each professional path, who these professionals help and how they go about helping their patients. Each book is reviewed by a qualified consultant in these respective professions. So a school counselor reviewed the school counselor book and helped us as we built that series. Next slide, please. And next slide. And that is my time. So I just want to thank you so much for listening and learning about all the amazing titles we have from Jump this fall. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Laura. And finally, we'll hear from Katie Kawa. Katie lives in Buffalo, New York, and has been working in children's publishing for 13 years. When she's not writing and editing books, she can be found tap dancing, vacation planning, and consuming and discussing all kinds of media, from Oscar nominees to boy bands. Thanks for being here today, Katie.
Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you so much for having me Booklist. Hi, everyone. As Julia said, I'm Katie Kawa, and I am an editorial director for the Rosen Publishing Group. And I am so excited to give you all a look at some of the fantastic titles that we have in store for fall 2023. As you can see here, many imprints fall under the Rosen Publishing Group umbrella. And today I will be focusing on titles from Windmill Books, Kid Haven Publishing, Enslow Publishing, Power Kids Press, Gareth Stevens Publishing, Cavendish Square, and Rosen Publishing. Information on the other Rosen Publishing imprints that are shown here can be found at rosenpublishing.com. And without further ado, let's get started. Kicking things off is Windmill Books, which focuses on creative approaches to both fiction and nonfiction with an expanding library of illustrated content. And that includes the series that you see here, Wonderful Words. These absolutely adorable books are geared toward early learners, and they focus on vocabulary building. The topics range from familiar areas such as food and things that can be found at home to more high interest concepts such as dinosaurs and sea creatures. As you can see here, each spread features an introductory sentence and a variety of labeled illustrations that introduce readers to new words. And a feature I found particularly helpful even as an adult looking at these was the pronunciation guides in the dinosaurs title, which you can see here. There are also interactive questions throughout, asking readers things such as how many trees can you see, which animal has horns, things like that, that really keep those beginning readers engaged with the text. I think these books are such an excellent addition to libraries because they can be read independently, but they're also really great for reading out loud in the classroom or at home with an adult. Now, next up, we have some selections from Kid Haven Publishing, which is dedicated to inspiring both curiosity and critical thinking in young readers, often with a focus on current events and timely topics, as you'll see here with Meet the Key Workers. Now, I absolutely loved working on the development of this set because fostering a sense of appreciation and respect for essential workers is still just as important today as it was during sort of the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this series really goes beyond the standard community helpers topics to include a variety of other essential workers, from delivery workers and EMTs to chefs and bus drivers. And I think it's so important for kids to see all of the different career options that are available to them. And this series gives so many examples of important jobs that maybe aren't talked about or focused on as much as doctors, firefighters, and police officers. I mean, although those are also focused on too. And as you can see, these books have a very vibrant and colorful design and a very manageable text load for elementary readers. And you can see here some of the careers that are focused on, including coaches, as well as search and rescue workers, including this very adorable and helpful dog who is a very good boy or very good girl indeed. Now, next up from Kid Haven, we have Start with Science. I know we all probably feel like we've seen a billion beginner science books at this point, but trust me when I say that these really felt unique. They're so bright, so eye-catching, and they have a really strong focus on visuals. So diagrams, clearly labeled photographs, infographics, those kinds of things. And this really helps those reluctant readers, those readers who have maybe less of an interest in science, and young readers to really enjoy learning about all of these basic science topics, which were carefully chosen to align with standard first and second grade curricula. Now here's a quick look inside this set, and you can really see the focus on big, bold images with labels or clear captions. And there's also a really strong focus in this set on how to apply these science concepts in the real world, which is a big part of Kid Haven's mission overall. Now for our next series, we are visiting Enslow Publishing for books that blend social studies with all things spooky, scary adventures around the world. This series is perfect for readers who like tales of adventure as they visit extreme places like Death Valley, the Bigfoot Trail, and Transylvania. Now, taking a look inside, you'll see that these books blend important facts about real locations with fun tidbits about the scary stories that are connected to those real places. Now, I am a noted scaredy cat, but these books even gave me some new places that I want to visit now because Transylvania does seem so cool. So that was my favorite one to look at in this set. Our next series comes from Cavendish Square, which offers curricular content that often has a strong focus on global cultures and diversity. And in this case, we are talking about culinary diversity, which is my personal favorite way to explore new cultures, if I'm being honest. However, exploring cultures in the kitchen is not just a basic cooking series. Instead, it presents essential information about how food and culture are connected in each country, like how food is used to honor holidays, how it's used to celebrate birthdays, and even how it reflects the natural environment of each of these countries. Now, that's not to say these books aren't full of recipes and hands-on activities. As you can see here, readers are instructed how to make a piñata. They're also instructed on how to make things like French desserts, Chinese rice dishes, and so many more delicious foods. And I am admittedly a terrible cook, but these seemed like recipes even I could follow. So they should be an absolute breeze for kids who have a real interest in doing things in the kitchen. Now, I know pets are always a popular topic for young readers, and Kid Haven's The Coolest Pets series takes an already beloved subject and makes it even more fun, even for those of us who might shudder at the idea of insects and spiders as a pet. These books feature all of the standard facts about what pets should eat, how to play with them, what kind of home they need, all of those basic things. But they also have an interactive component. They feature instructions for how to make a toy or a treat or something else either for or related to these pets. And the information in these books is really easily digestible for readers at a variety of levels because, as you can see here, it's broken down into short sections that are paired with very fun photos. So let's all take a second to look at all of those very cute puppies. And even those birds are kind of adorable. Now we have a pair of graphic nonfiction sets from Power Kids Press. So we're going to start with Junior Graphic Tales of the Unexplained. Now these are the perfect Halloween reads, or they're also just the perfect all year reads for kids who are into all things spooky. Creatures and monsters and ghost stories and mysteries are all given the graphic novel treatment here. These books are perfect for kids who love comic books or manga or any other kind of graphic storytelling. And Power Kids Press is also offering Junior Graphic Early American History with titles on African American history, the Founding Fathers, which is shown here, American legends, and stories of early America. This format really is the perfect way to get reluctant readers excited to learn about American history. And it's also just a really fresh take on common topics that I think is a great addition to libraries. Next up, we have a series from Gareth Stevens Publishing, which is known for its fun approach to nonfiction, and these make and bake holiday treats books are certainly fun. Readers discover the history behind holidays such as Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Hanukkah as they learn to make treats related to each special celebration. Now, I have some kids in my life who absolutely love baking, and I can see them having a blast with these books as they make treats to share for different holidays, because these books really foster a sense of independence and competency in the kitchen, but they also still stress the importance of safety and getting help from adults for tasks like using the oven or using knives. And here's a look at some of the recipes you'll find in these books, which feature simple steps, clear ingredients lists with photos, which I think is really great to see, and equipment lists, which are all that's so helpful for kids to know before they begin making the recipes, and safety tips. And those witch's finger cookies in the Halloween book look both terrifying and tasty. And after I read that, I was like, maybe I want to make those for Halloween this year too. Now, next up from Gareth Stevens, we have Today's Top Drivers, which features biographies of some of the most famous names in Formula One and NASCAR racing. Now, NASCAR has always been a popular sport, but I personally know so many people in the last few years who've gotten into F1 racing, and that includes kids. So the fact that this set kind of features the best of both worlds is sure to appeal to a wide range of auto sports fans. Now, these books are perfect for those wanting to learn more about racing in general and maybe have more of an introduction to it, or those who are already passionate racing fans who want to know more about their favorite driver. Now, these are high-low books, so they are written at a lower grade level, but for a higher interest level, as you'll see here. And this makes them ideal for struggling readers who really want content that is created for them, including if they're sports fans. Now, here we have a staple of the Cavendish Square list for many years, which is Cultures of the World. Now, if you aren't familiar with this series, each book provides a comprehensive overview of a country with maps, recipes, gorgeous photos, and so much more. And if you are familiar, you might have noticed that the 4th edition has gotten a completely new look that I personally am obsessed with, and some new features. New fact boxes highlight points of interest and words in a country's native language, and new sidebars profile individuals who exemplify the concept of global citizenship through activism. Now, these books are broken down into chapters that focus on one specific aspect of life in a given country, such as religion and geography, as you'll see here, as well as history, economics, leisure activities, food, and more. Also, here you can see the absolutely beautiful photos in these books. And I read each one of these, and I've been inspired to travel to more than one new place because of them. So I think these are really perfect for kids who have an interest in travel, in addition to just being a really helpful research resource. Now, here we have some more graphic novel style content with graphic short stories. This time it's from Rosen Publishing, so it's really geared toward that upper elementary, middle school, junior high set of readers. These topics range from mythology and forensics to survival stories and urban legends, so they cover a nice broad body of interests. Now, once again, the format is perfect for reluctant or struggling readers, as well as readers who just kind of prefer comic books or graphic novels, and the illustrations are super cool. Now, everyone is always looking for new ways to approach STEM topics, and Cavendish Square has done it with graphic elements and activities in this set out of this world. I especially want to single out a world of supercars as a standout for readers who love cars, because it focuses on the fastest and most technologically advanced cars in the world. Now, what makes this set unique is definitely its design, so let's look at that now. These spreads really give you a sense of what readers discover in these books. Big, bright photographs, call-out boxes, inset images, sidebars. It really is a feast for the eyes. And each book also features an activity to give readers a way to further explore these topics, like building a drawing robot in the robotics book. Now, finally, we have Rosen Publishing's coping books, which tackle a range of difficult topics, as you can see here. And they really focus on facts instead of scare tactics. And they have a really intersectional approach to these topics that makes them stand out as a great resource for all readers. These books provide essential information, as well as resources readers can use to learn more or to get help if they're struggling with any of these issues. And we all know young people today have access to so much information at their fingertips, but we also know it's important for them to have those trusted sources that they can turn to when dealing with difficult issues. And these books and content from Rosen Publishing in general has always been known as those trusted sources they can turn to. And with that, my time with you has come to an end. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hear about what Rosen Publishing has to offer. And more information and more titles can be found at rosenpublishing.com. And if you have any questions, my contact information is provided here. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you so much, Katie. And a big thank you to all of today's wonderful presenters. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones, like those you see here. It's Graphic Novels and Libraries Month here at Booklist. Celebrate with us by attending one of our graphic novel themed webinars. Read our Graphic Novel and Libraries Month supplement, currently free and open to all on our website, and enter our Read Graphic sweepstakes for your chance to win free swag from our sponsors. Visit our website for more details. Recently, ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom reported 1,269 demands to censor library books and resources in 2022, the highest number of attempted book bans since ALA began compiling data about censorship in libraries more than 20 years ago. Join the Unite Against Book Bans campaign to help protect the freedom to read and to empower readers everywhere. Visit uniteagainstbookbans.org for more information, resources to donate, and more. And remember that you can utilize Booklist to support your library's collection development choices with reviews backed by the ALA. We have a special webinar subscription offer, and don't forget that your subscription dollars help ALA advocate on behalf of libraries, assisting those who face an unprecedented number of book challenges. Email us at info@booklistonline.com for more information. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. And one more huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsors, Nomad Press, Bearport Publishing, Jump Library, and the Rosen Publishing Group. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.